Where did everything come from? That is one of the biggest questions any person can ask. Not just where did life come from, or where did the earth come from, but where did everything come from? Matter, energy, space, time, the laws of nature, the order of the universe itself. The common answer today is the Big Bang. Many people hear that phrase and assume the question has been settled. They imagine science has explained the origin of the universe, and only religious people still have doubts. But I want to slow that down, because the real issue is not science versus religion. The real issue is this: what do you put at the beginning? The Bible says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." The humanist worldview says, in effect, in the beginning there was matter, or energy, or a tiny point, or even nothing, and somehow everything came from that. Those are not neutral starting points. They are two different beliefs about ultimate reality. One begins with God, the other begins without him. And if someone tells me creation is religious, but the Big Bang is pure science, I want to ask a few simple questions. First, where did the matter come from? In one story Kent Hovind told, he was on an airplane speaking with a professor from Berkeley. The professor believed the universe came from the Big Bang. He described the usual idea. Billions of years ago, all the matter in the universe was compressed into an incredibly dense, incredibly hot region, perhaps smaller than a period on a page. Then it expanded or exploded, and eventually the galaxies, stars, planets, and people came from that event. But that description still leaves the biggest question unanswered. Where did the matter come from? If all the matter was once packed into a tiny dot, then who made the dot? If everything in the universe was compressed into that point, where did the contents of that point come from? You can say it was small. You can say it was hot. You can say it was dense. But none of that explains why it existed at all. Some versions go even further and say the universe came from nothing. Not just empty space, because space itself would also need an origin. Not just invisible energy, because energy is still something. They mean nothing. But if nothing really means nothing, then nothing cannot explode. Nothing cannot expand. Nothing cannot produce matter, energy, space, time, stars, galaxies, planets, and people. If I said, nothing exploded and created everything, you would not call that an explanation. You would call it a miracle without God. That is why I reject the idea that the Big Bang, as a complete origin story, is automatically scientific while creation is automatically religious. Both views begin with something ultimate. The Christian says, in the beginning, God. The naturalist says, in some form, in the beginning, matter, or in the beginning, energy, or in the beginning, nothing became something. So the question is not whether someone has faith. The question is where that faith is placed. Second, where did the laws come from? The universe is not random chaos. It runs by laws: gravity, inertia, conservation laws, mathematical order, predictable relationships. The world is structured in a way that can be studied and measured. But where did those laws come from? If the universe came from a blind explosion, why is it governed by consistent laws? Why does gravity behave consistently? Why are the laws not still evolving into something else? Why is the universe intelligible to the human mind? That question matters. Science depends on order. It depends on laws that do not change from one moment to the next. But if everything began without a lawgiver, then why should we expect such deep order in the first place? The Christian worldview has an answer. A rational God created an ordered universe, and he made man with a mind capable of studying that order. That is why science makes sense. The universe is not ultimate chaos. It is creation. Third, where did the energy come from? A machine does not run without power. A system does not operate without energy. If the universe is full of motion, heat, light, gravity, and activity, then we have to ask where the energy came from. To say it was simply there is not an explanation. It is a starting assumption, and that is exactly the point. Everyone has a starting point. The naturalist may not like the word faith, but he still has to begin with something he cannot finally explain. Fourth, what about the order and motion in the universe? If the universe began as a spinning point that broke apart, we should ask what we would expect from that. In ordinary physics, when a spinning object breaks apart, The pieces tend to preserve the direction of rotation because of angular momentum. Think of a merry-go-round spinning. If something flies off, it does not suddenly ignore the spin it came from. It carries that motion with it until something else acts on it. So if the solar system came from a spinning mass, why do some planets rotate differently? Why do some moons move in unusual directions? Why do some planets have moons going different ways? Why are the planets so different in composition? Why do we see galaxies with unexpected motion? These are fair questions. They do not disappear because someone labels them model science. A model should be able to explain the details, not just the broad story. The point is not that every question about astronomy is simple. The point is that the Big Bang model has serious problems, and Christians should not be intimidated by big words or confident voices. The Bible gives a very different starting point. The universe did not create itself. Matter is not eternal. Nothing did not become everything. God created. That statement is simple, but it is not shallow. It gives a foundation for matter because God made it. It gives a foundation for laws because God is orderly and faithful. It gives a foundation for energy because God is the source of all things. It gives a foundation for human reason because we are made in the image of a rational creator. And there is another issue we cannot ignore. If the world came from a Big Bang and slowly evolved over billions of years, then what do we do with death, suffering, and the cross of Christ? If millions or billions of years of death came before man, then death is not the result of sin. Death becomes part of the process that produced man. But the Bible teaches that death entered because of sin. The Bible presents death as an enemy, not as God's tool for creating a very good world. So the question becomes much bigger than cosmology. If death was always here, why did Jesus die? If suffering and death were part of the original creative process, what exactly is God going to restore? The Bible says there will be a restoration. It points back to a world that was originally good. That only makes sense if death and suffering are intruders, not the foundation of creation. That is why I do not treat the Big Bang as a harmless scientific detail. It is tied to an entire view of history. It is tied to billions of years. It is tied to death before sin. It is tied to a version of origins that does not begin with the clear words of Genesis. Now, I do believe there is a Big Bang coming in one sense. The Bible says the heavens will pass away with a great noise. But that is not the origin of the universe. That is future judgment. The great noise is not behind us. It is ahead. The world did not begin with chaos. It began with command. God said, "Let there be." That is the true foundation. The universe is not an accident. It is not a cosmic burp. It is not stardust that somehow woke up and started asking questions. It is the creation of God. So when someone tells you the universe came from the Big Bang, do not be afraid to ask simple questions. Where did the matter come from? Where did the laws come from? Where did the energy come from? Why does the universe have order? Why is there something rather than nothing? And what happens to the biblical teaching that death came because of sin? Those questions are not anti-science. They are honest. They go to the foundation. The real issue is not whether you believe in an origin story. Everyone does. The real issue is which origin story can actually explain the world we live in. One story begins with nothing or matter or mysterious stuff. The other begins with God. And the way you answer that beginning will shape everything that comes after it.